with cryptocurrencies and equities continuing to push to all new highs while gold still lags. Many investors are wondering if and when a rotation will happen away from risk asset into safe haven asset. Lynn Alden, founder of Alden Investment Strategy, compares the valuation metrics of gold, cryptocurrencies, and equities and evaluates which of these, in her opinion, has never been more expensive. She said that their plan is basically that they change their inflation policy somewhat in the sense that they want to have average inflation targeting. So rather than treating their 2% more like an upper kind of like a ceiling where they start to kind of get concerned, they are basically pointing to the fact that according to the way they measure inflation, they undershot it. Basically, their policy is to not front run inflation expectations. They have described it as they want to see inflation kind of over 2% for considerable amount of time. They are aware that we have upcoming base effects. So already March inflation was over 2% year over year. CPI at least was more than 2% year over year compared to the last year. And the April, May and June numbers are going to be higher because you are comparing to a very low inflationary period of last year, which was the heart of the shutdowns. So with all the fiscal stimulus in the economy, with reopenings and with those base effects, we are going to get pretty high numbers. And the Fed is kind of trying to control the narrative by pointing out that in their view, they'll be transitory and that they don't plan to do emergency hikes right away. They have kind of vague about what they mean by a period of time. So we have to assume that both magnitude and duration matter, and some of the magnitudes that people are forecasting with models are rather high for this late spring and early summer period, when you have the combination of those burst effects and all that physical response. If they blink, it's possible they could pull forward some of their tightening due to magnitude, more so than duration on the other hand. If they hold firm and kind of look through those few months, inflation could then go back down, at least again the way they measure. It could go back down to that 2 to 3 percentage range, and they might be willing to hold that for a period of time. There's an order of things they could taper, so before they hike rates, they probably would start dialing back their asset purchases. They are still purchasing treasuries and mortgage backed securities at a rate of about $120 billion per month. So they could start dialing that back to 80 billion to 40 billion before they look at hiking rates. The longer term problem with hiking rates is that there's so much debt in the system that every time they hike rates, they basically start running into a credit issue. Even when they get to the point where they have to hike rates, that's going to cause issues and it might have them reverse course probably faster than they think. They are not going to get to a period of normalization anytime soon, says Lynn Alden. The other mandate that the Fed has is full employment, as the unemployment rate has come down steadily since last year. It's currently at around 6%, non-farm unemployment rate. One metric that the economists look at is the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, otherwise known as NAIRU. Now NAIRU measures the unemployment rate at which inflation stays constant. They are focusing on multiple metrics, including broader metrics of unemployment. They are taking a pretty conservative view about that. So basically between their two mandates of price stability and employment, they are full on in the camp right now of trying to emphasize employment. That's why they are willing to let inflation run hot. In their view, if it means letting employment kind of rebound. So even though the unofficial employment rate has come down somewhat, if you look at the number of jobs in the economy, we are still very short of what the total number of jobs were pre-pandemic. If you look at the labor participation rate, the employment population ratio and broader measures of people that are marginally attached to the workforce or underemployed. So if you look at those broader metrics, we still have a long way to go to get back to the jobs that we had prior to the pandemic, and that jobs are generally a lagging indicator that they are some of the slower things to rebound. Whereas retail sales can bounce back quickly, GDP can bounce back a little bit after that. But jobs are kind of a longer term thing. They are trying to have that pro-inflationary, pro-job growth environment, and they are willing to kind of make that sacrifice on the inflation side. That can obviously be an issue for people that are invested in cash or invested in bonds. Alden cited several indicators that point to overvaluation in the stock markets. She said that over the past year, we have had a record high market capitalization to GDP ratio in the United States. That is not the case in many other countries. But in the United States, we have reached very high valuations, even higher by that metric than the dot-com bubble. Most metrics show that we are at the second most expensive period ever. If you look at the cyclically adjusted price to earnings ratio, if you look at dividend yields, we are roughly second to where we were in the dot-com bubble. But by a couple of metrics like price to sales ratio or market cap to GDP, the United States has never been more expensive than it is right now. By comparison, gold is more fairly valued, Alden noted. Gold, by most conservative metrics, it's undervalued. By more aggressive metrics, it's maybe fairly valued. If you look at gold compared to other commodities, you are generally on the more pricey side for gold. If you look at how many ounces of gold it takes to buy the median house, you are still looking a bit more on the pricey side for gold. But if you are comparing gold to the amount of broad money supply in the system, if you do it on a per capita basis, or if you take into account gold's inflation rate, basically the mining rate, that's about fairly valued. On cryptocurrencies, the fair value of Bitcoin would depend on assumptions for growth. For example, the percentage of market capitalization of another asset, such as gold, that Bitcoin would eventually take up. One observation Alden has made is that during a bull run for Bitcoin, altcoins tend to outperform. She said when Bitcoin has a bull market, there are periods of time where thousands of other cryptocurrencies that are created start actually performing. And that's investors going out on the risk curve. Basically, what you are seeing in the crypto space is that Ethereum is doing very well. That's the second largest cryptocurrency. And then if you go down into DeFi protocols and things like that, a lot of those have been explosive. You also see NFTs. They have taken some of the heat away from Bitcoin. We have also had that big Dogecoin spike. Bitcoin may still have some upside, but its potential is limited at currency valuations. Alden said, adding that the largest cryptocurrency is still more fairly priced than some altcoins like Dogecoin. She mentioned there's a good chance that Bitcoin has further upside this year. It's a less asymmetric trade idea than it was back in 2020 when it was $10,000 per coin. Now that it's risen so much, there's still a lot of on-chain indicators that look attractive. A lot of the other protocols are overvalued, and the classic case would be Dogecoin. Alden said that eventually Bitcoin will likely have a big correction. The only question is from what price level. Now, if you found this video really knowledgeable, then let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more such amazing videos. I'll see you in my next video.